like, here are the steps to reproduce, so on and so forth. And somebody's like, no, we're not going to reopen this. Just put a new issue in. So I was like, all right. So I put a new issue in. And then some guy commented on it like, I can't reproduce this. And he sends a screenshot of like the node screen. I'm like, no. It's not the node screen. It's in a view. He's like, no, I understand. I did it in the view. I can't. He's like, I can't reproduce this. Can you provide steps? And I'm like, so tonight I'm gonna try to provide more clear steps on how to reproduce the problem.
Where's the issue?
What's what?
Where can you post the issue in?
I'm busy.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, sorry, I was yelling. Sorry, I was yelling to my family. Sorry.
Get busy here. Leave me alone.
1 second, actually.
Where you are? Steven, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear.
Are you a Starbucks Rewards member?
Yeah.
If you go into T-Mobile Tuesday today, you can get 50 extra stars.
Oh, cool.
Which is weird because I just got a text that's like, T-Mobile Tuesdays is back. And I was like, they usually suck. And then it was like 50 extra stars. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I always forget to look at that.
Where is it? Can we make the dashboard more useful? Like, I honestly can't even with this dashboard. Its lack of usability.
Do you guys want to do that article? Talk about that article that I sent in the PDF?
Sure.
Not?
Sure.
Did you read it?
Yeah. You're talking about the one about states opening up?
The apps. It's really about
Yeah.
apps.
Yeah, I read it.
The apps. No apps.
Okay, I'm going to comment on there that I can't reproduce the steps.
I will straight up flip this table away.
Yeah, why the heck is he in the content? Oh, no, he did do it in a view. He's using the content overview view.
What?
That's the content overview view. He's doing what you said.
Added the link to the content field on admin content page with no error.
Yeah, look at it. Look at his picture. That's a view that you're looking at.
Yeah, but did he check the checkbox? Use absolute link? I mean, I guess he must have because it's. I wonder if it's a problem with the podcast module.
Could be. What did I do this week? You guys are making me self-conscious to talk about gardening. And that's all we do now. It's garden and cook.
Well, now I'm going to have to go and try this again because... Sorry, I didn't look over to the end of his... I guess I didn't...
Update the same view on the page that was having the issue and see if it happens.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to dig in though to see if it's a problem with... See if it's a problem with the podcast module or if it's a problem with actual core. But so, I mean, I guess I'll just redo what he did and see if I run into the same error.
Yeah. One of the other issues that contact tracers are having an issue with, people don't answer the phones if they don't know the number because
it's true.
Companies allow...
They should be leaving a message. Right?
But they're not allowed to because it's protected health information. and they have to verify.
They can't be like, "Hi, this is a CDC. We have an important message for you. Call us back."
They should, but half the message that I get are, "This is the IRS.
This is the IRS, right?
Your social security number has been stolen, and action is being filed against you." So
then they should send people letters through the mail. You've been exposed to the coronavirus. You should get tested immediately.
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting about the article is that even the ones that are using location, like if you're in the same building in New York but 20 floors apart, they're going to say you've been in contact with somebody even though you've never seen that person. So I think the Bluetooth solution was pretty interesting. Although I thought it was kind of funny that they mentioned that it was only like audio. It's like Bluetooth is used for a lot more than just audio. But I know what I can talk about. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that next week.
Okay. All right, let me see. Do I have that junk on the bottom here? I do. So, JP, AC.
Drupal's 9 out. Now that Drupal 9 is out, could we change the roadmap to actually tell
John,
us?
I don't think you're using your mic.
Oh, you know what? Probably not.
Sounds like it's the computer mic.
Yep. There you go.
That's better. Much better. Much better.
It's so funny to me that how little I notice of things like that.
Well, it's because
like as soon as you mention it, it's obvious to me. But like,
it's because JJ used this computer for his like Zoom stuff. So like, he would use the microphone on the webcam. And the last time I went to restart, like I went to upgrade Zoom on this computer, it crashed this computer.
Nick, can you talk? I'm not sure. You're usually too loud.
Test. How's this? Much loud.
Down.
You seem pretty soft, Steven.
By the way, last week's recording was smaller for me. Maybe it's when there's not a guest. Maybe a guest makes it more.
Usually
input.
The more video that's there on the screen, the bigger the file will be.
Yeah, maybe. But with one less person, it's half the price, half the size.
That makes sense.
How's this? Is that better?
It's more equal to John's.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Did you see the video I sent?
And it looks
last
like
week
it's matching mine okay as well.
about the streaming?
What's that?
You see the video I sent last week about the streaming setup?
No, I don't think I ever clicked on that. What was it?
The $100,000 streaming setup.
Oh, was it?
So it's a guy that goes to the 3 or 4 different levels and says, starting out, here's how you make your webcam look better, all the way up to like
Right.
fully mobile, professional grade, live video
All right.
with multicam.
This is Talking Drupal.
Are we ready?
We're talking Drupal.
I didn't know where to put my link in. The link that I had about the deprecation stuff.
Your link about the application stuff, I don't follow.
Deprecation stuff. The deprecation status from Acquia.
We have a section.
You talk about deprecated code, don't we?
Yeah.
It is
How did I miss that? I looked.
I don't know how you missed
removal
it.
of deprecated code. Right where my cursor is. Click on my thingamajigger and you'll go right down to it.
Wait, clicking. Oh, I didn't know that was a feature. Oh, well, that's different. No, the link that I was talking about is the one that Acquia released a deprecation status tool.
Right,
Yeah.
put it in here.
Yeah, just stick the link in there. We can talk about it
I
there.
will.
Yeah.
Yep.
Insert your link here. Sorry, I didn't know I had to write that. I'll do it next time. other than these two things, Drupal 9 and Drupal
You know, there's something weird about that tool. The search doesn't do a begins with. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I haven't actually used it that much.
Yeah, I've used it for, I create a sheet with tracking all the modules we're using and the status of them.
Yeah, you're right.
And it doesn't do like a begins on the, it's like a weird.
Or contains.
You have to put quotes around it or something. No, you had to put a star. You have to do like the begins and then asterisk and then you can find it. Like, who knows to do that these days?
Developers that are using the...
Developers.
I mean, I can't find paragraphs no matter what I type in, so
What?
maybe not.
PAR star.
Yeah, I just did that.
That doesn't work?
Oh, capital P doesn't work.
Right, yeah.
It's be
Yeah.
lowercase p-a-r.
Yeah, it's weird. It's bizarre.
Graph.
It took me a while to like figure out how to use this stupid thing.
Seriously, why is
Oh, but paragraphs by itself, lowercase doesn't find anything either.
What? Went to the dentist this morning. Man, that was an experience.
Yeah, I don't
What do you
intend
mean?
on going to the dentist for a little while.
Well,
Oh,
it was just
all the protocol stuff.
yeah. I mean, it was easy. It was fine. Like I didn't feel like I was in any inherent danger, but it was like wait in your car, call the office when you get here, and then once I got there, masked up, went inside, and they're like, okay, here's some Purell, rub your hands, and then they took your temperature. I'm like, okay, and then they walk you into the room and they ask you a shit ton of questions, and then the last thing is they ask you to sign a waiver that basically says you could get coronavirus here.
Yeah, I mean, the dentist is more dangerous than most doctor's visits because they're in your mouth aerosolizing things.
Well,
Like
so that's the thing. They make you, before they do anything, the first thing you do is you have to rinse your mouth with hydrogen peroxide for over a minute.
Yeah, I just, unless I have a dental issue, I am not going to the dentist until.
Can somebody explain this tool to me though? Because I've typed in paragraph and it's not finding anything.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
No, I know, but like, how do you find paragraphs?
Type in PAR, all lowercase, asterisk, and you'll find about 400 things.
Yeah.
And you have to look through the list and find the one that's actually paragraphs, which I still have not found.
Which is
because it doesn't, unless it's the paragraphs dev one at the top, which maybe makes sense.
Here you go.
It is.
You type paragraphs star and you find everything.
That's what we just said.
Yep, that's the discussion we literally just had.
But what
I don't think John can hear us.
What is the point of this tool?
John, can you hear us?
What?
No. I think the point of the tool.
Talk louder.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about it. Hey, wait a minute! Look at the word developer at the top. That's interesting.
What?
The word is cut off.
Oh yeah.
Where?
Right.
What are you talking about?
Who made this page?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, did you guys take a look at the did you take a look at the project that I linked to, the Maintainers Initiative?
Yeah. Sort of, yeah.
It's spelled wrong. I noticed that last night. If you click on the project name,
Hold on a second.
it's spelled wrong.
Where?
Did I not put I didn't put the link in. Let me grab the
Oh, the actual project. No.
No, it's the link to the blog post about it. I forgot to put that in here.
Yeah, I tried to find the blog post, but all I did was get to his GitHub.
Yeah, you know what? It's in the Slack. Can someone open up Slack and paste it in here? I stuck it in the stories the other day. I don't want to open up my Slack.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get any messages. Well, I guess I need to.
Where do you want it? Under stories?
No, put it into the Maintainers Initiative section.
The project is spelled right, though.
No,
Is
the
that what
word
you're talking
initiative
about?
is wrong.
Finish. Oh, yeah.
See it? There's no eyes, and eye missing. Not like I'm anyone to point that out, but
has Tim ever had reliability issues before?
Tim, who?
Tim.
We're
Dickens?
recording.
Oh, then never mind.
Okay.
I need to find a freaking nanny like now.
Pause notifications. Pause
Marking down notes to find a nanny.
Laura's supposed to be on it looking for somebody, but like
What, you don't use Amazon for that?
I wonder if home services does provide nannies.
Alexa.
Are you kidding?
Alexa, get me a nanny.
It's gonna be satire. Au pairs are one of the only work visas allowed right now. If you want an au pair, you can still get them.
All right, we ready to roll here?
$30,000 a year.
Well, right now I'm looking for a nanny on Amazon. Hold on a second. No, it doesn't appear that they provide that service.
John, I can put something in the newsletter if you want.
No, it's all right.
Okay. Yeah, I have to kind of keep this a little tight because I have to get back to it.
All right, well, you're in
Really
charge
issue for
of the
fun.
boat today, so
Right.
so I didn't put any initials next to all this stuff, so we'll just kind of play it as we go.
Sure. That works. I'm ready. If you guys are.
Let me see. Are you recording locally?
Yep.
All right, me too. But talk again.
Test.
All right, good. We're rolling. Whenever you're. Let's record on Zoom too. Hang on.
Let's record in all the places.
Just in case. All right.
This is. Oh my god.
Hello, puberty.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
We're just gonna put
Wait.
down. We're gonna put down 000 second 000.
This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of guys with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 253, Drupal 9.0. Welcome to Talking Drupal. Over the past 6 months, we have touched on Drupal 9, and today we're all Drupal 9. We talk about what's here now and what's coming. I'm Nick Laughlin from Enlightened Development, and joining me today, as usual, Stephen Cross.
Hey, Nick. Hey, John.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hi.
What's new with you this week, Stephen?
What's new with me this week? I'm getting excited about July 3rd. Does anybody know what's on July 3rd?
Day before July 4th.
True. It
It's
is
also the observance of July 4th.
true, getting close, but it is the release of Hamilton, the Broadway show on Disney Plus.
What?
So I don't
Really?
know. I don't know if you
really?
guys are Hamilton fans, but
I've never seen it.
never-
I
haven't
wanted
either.
to see it.
I mean, this is how you can see it now. So
I wanted to see it, but
They-
now I'm excited.
they did a movie. They recorded the Broadway with the original cast like years ago, like I think in 2016. And they've had it this long, and Disney bought the rights to Hamilton like a year ago. And it was supposed to be released, I think, next year, like next October. And they decided with all the quarantine going on and everything, they would release it early. So it's coming out on the 3rd.
With all the captive audience at home.
Yes, all the captive audience at home. So been re-listening to that soundtrack for quite a while, getting excited for it. And I'm about halfway through the original book as well, which is pretty long. So I'm going to see if I can finish the book before then. John, who are you
Sorry.
waving at?
Sorry, I can see myself in Nick's monitor. And I'm waving because it's funny.
I could see John waving at the camera.
I'm sorry. I was like, hi.
I thought it
Like,
was
is that
someone
me?
behind me. I'm looking behind me.
So for our listeners, my fourth monitor is at like a 90-degree angle to my right, and my webcam, you can see it from my webcam. And so recently I started recording just as like a backup, recording the show on OBS. So John is entertaining himself by waving to himself. Speaking of,
it took
what's new with you?
It took us about 3 minutes to just get to this level today.
Yeah, it's quick. So other than waving to yourself, what's new with you this week, John?
I actually had a very interesting exchange on Drupal Slack this week. Somebody had either reached out or I had seen a comment on Drupal Slack about commerce, and I think this person actually reached out, but they were trying to set up commerce. They were running into some issues with basically defining the store per domain for commerce, and I explained how to do it using the commerce domain module, and we went back and forth. And then the last pin there was setting up a view to use a contextual filter to look at the store setting that the commerce domain module was setting. But the reason I bring it up is because, throughout the experience, and, I'm not on Drupal Slack all the time. So I was getting back to this person kind of as quickly as I could, but within my workflow. But they were so appreciative, and they were so amazed by the fact that they were getting like this level of support on Drupal Slack. And, it really kind of opened up my eyes to, I said to this person, my goal is like to help whoever I can help, because if I help you solve this problem that I've already kind of solved, I've already banged my head against, maybe there's another problem that you can go and solve with the time, and then down the road, I don't have to bang my head on that problem. So it was just really interesting to, be able to help somebody that I had never met with a problem that I had already solved. And then also just hear from them that they were like super appreciative, and that they, it kind of changed their thinking on Drupal Slack and its usefulness. So
John, which channel was that on?
It wasn't actually in a channel. The person had direct messaged me.
Oh, okay.
So let me actually just take a look to see what the first direct message was.
And for our listeners, standard, I think, protocol, like good manners, is to message in a channel. Because that helps with a couple of things. One, if somebody else knows, they can reach out, or if somebody else has the same question, they see the answer too. And if somebody searches Slack, then that history is there.
Yeah. So I think this person did do that. And then I said, like, if you need more help, feel free to like ping me directly. So they did, because they were working on a more specific use case that I had already kind of gone through. But yeah.
It's interesting. We've had some listeners be reaching out to us recently on the random channel in Slack on Drupal. And,
yeah, that's always fun.
Indirect sort of and tagging us in those messages. So one of the threads got pretty long a few weeks ago, and there was some interaction again today. Yeah, it's kind of fun. So Nick, what's going on with you?
So with me this week, as in past weeks, just spending a lot of time gardening, and apparently I'm coming down with something, maybe laryngitis.
Yeah, your voice keeps cracking.
My voice is, I don't know what's going on. But we, my wife and I have just been spending a lot of time in the garden. We planted those trumpet vines maybe 3 weeks ago, and they've like tripled in size. I'm beginning to be afraid that they're going to take over and be a little bit more aggressive than we thought.
Nick, is it all flowers, or are you doing vegetables as well?
The only vegetables we do are tomatoes. So we've got a couple of tomato plants.
How's this droughty weather for your tomatoes?
Well, they're fine. I mean, they've they've probably, when we bought them, they were in a 4-inch pot and maybe 6 inches tall, and now they're about 2 feet tall. They're doing fine.
It's the miracle of running water.
Yeah, I assume you guys are watering them.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Yeah, I've been watering once or twice a day, depending on how bad it is. But we also have a succulent garden that we planted, and typically succulents are, you think that they're pretty drab, but they're all flowering crazily. It's been we've been enjoying the gardening.
I mean, this is perfect weather for the succulents. They're all about it.
Yeah, they've been enjoying it. That's for sure.
That's cool. Anytime I garden, I kill things, so I stopped gardening. Although I will say my grass looks pretty good right now.
My theory is, because I used to be the same way, my theory is you need a critical mass of plants. Because if you only get 1 or 2 houseplants or 1 or 2 plants in the garden, you have to remember to go and water it every couple of days. But if you have 50 plants inside, well, it just becomes a regular chore, and you're not going to, and like you have more opportunity to see one that's getting a little dry and needs some water. And when you remember one, you just water everything at that point. So yeah, I used to do the same thing, kill them all the time. Every plant we got, would last a couple months, but maybe a year ago, we started buying more plants, and at this point, our house is a jungle. I think we have about 50 potted plants in the house.
It's funny. I've had one plant now for, I don't know, probably 9 years. And I know it's a perfect plant for me because it, when it needs water because it gets a little wilty, and then you give it a bunch of water and it springs back up to life. And it's like perfect. I've kept it going for about 9 years now. So I'm pretty excited about that. Anyway, moving right along.
Yeah, so this week our first story is about some contact tracing apps. There was a story in the Wall Street Journal that Stephen found that talks about how a couple different states are trying to handle tracking contacts for people that are infected with coronavirus and notify people that were nearby and possibly infected. I think the part of the article that was most fascinating to me was just how many false positives and false negatives the location apps had. So, for example, a couple of reporters kept the app on them, and if they drove somewhere, it seemed that it didn't always collect the place that they stopped, but it would collect places that they drove by. So if somebody drove by a Dunkin' Donuts and maybe stayed at a stoplight, the app would determine that the person was at the Dunkin' Donuts. And so I was thinking about how, if I was writing code for that, how I would determine if somebody was there, because it's very difficult to know that somebody was actually at a specific place, without storing every single point that they were.
The thing that struck me in the big picture of this is just the haphazard approach to the way this is being addressed at a state-by-state level, and there's software vendors that are coming up with solutions, and states are hiring contractors all over the place to write these apps, and some of them care about privacy, some of them don't. And then Google and Apple got together, and they wrote some software to sit on your devices that use basically Bluetooth to collect data and do this in a real safe, private way. But that technology can only be used if someone writes an app for it. So there aren't many apps that are written to use that yet, although everyone's phone, if you've taken recent updates, has that capability now. And some states don't want to do that because they don't want that level of privacy. They want more data than Google and Apple are allowing to go through this app. It just seems like something like this only works if you have a majority of people using it. If you don't, it's just a hot mess. And it seems to me that certainly where we live in New England, where states are so close together, how could you not be using the same app for everyone, right? Or it's useless.
Yeah.
Like Rhode Island having a different app than Massachusetts seems almost foolish.
I think it's interesting that they basically split it out so that you can only use Bluetooth, Google and Apple, because it allows you to know when you were nearby somebody without knowing specifically where you were. But I also understand the other point, wanting to know kind of both points, like were you close to somebody as well as where. So you want to kind of know the people that somebody who's infected were close to, so you can notify them to keep track. But you also want to know the place that the person that got infected so that you can kind of see if there's a hotspot developing.
Yeah, but the Google and the Apple solutions don't provide the location data. They basically let you know, hey, on this day you came in contact with someone that had coronavirus, you should be tested. I mean, to me, that seems a reasonable way to do this. Do you really need to know the location? Probably not.
No. Maybe I wasn't very clear, but what I'm saying is I think for an individual person perspective, that's good data. Like knowing that you were in contact with somebody specifically that is tested positive recently is valuable. But I'm thinking from a more global perspective, knowing, for example, that a specific town is having, because people traveled somewhere, is having a higher, like, for example, knowing that Worcester has a higher infection rate isn't as helpful as knowing that people going from Worcester to a specific restaurant are having a higher rate. So that the location data is useful too, but when you combine location data, with the government, it becomes a very sticky situation.
Yeah. I just can't. Well, I see why this could be valuable. I can't see that this will ever go anywhere.
Do you think, based on what you guys are saying, do you think it's a national contact tracing app is needed where it's borderless and it uses one technology where, it doesn't matter if you cross from Rhode Island into Connecticut back into Rhode Island, it's gonna track you with the same level that everybody else is being tracked?
I think that's what Apple and Google tried to do. That's why they came together to try to provide a single solution that was hardware and device agnostic. So it worked, the same thing is working in both devices. Yeah. But the problem is, I think that different people have different desires for the kind of data they want to get out of this. And Apple and Google, believe it or not, were very concerned about privacy.
Yeah, right. and that's where the federal government, those types of programs that cross state lines. I mean, that's the definition of the purview of the federal government.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I don't think that there's not really an initiative right now behind a contact tracing app. Right. I think the contact tracing is more manual at this point in most places.
Absolutely.
Like most apps that exist, they have very low, in the US, have very low acceptance. I did see Germany open sourced a contact tracing app. I didn't have a chance to dig into it too much, but I was interested in looking at that. But apparently they developed a pretty effective application. And I know Taiwan heavily relies on automated contact tracing like this. So for example, I know that for the Diamond Princess, they sent out something like 300,000 notifications. Like once some people came back from the Diamond Princess cruise line, they found out like 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, they sent out notices to every single person that came in contact with any of those passengers, which was hundreds of thousands of people. And so I think it's an effective way to notify people that they should get a test. But getting to the point where enough people are doing it and are confident that their privacy is maintained is going to be a challenge.
It's an interesting topic to me because it kind of crosses all the things that I'm kind of interested in. I'm interested in privacy, interested in technology, interested in what's happening with this pandemic and the social distancing and everything. And these contact tracing apps kind of touch all those things. So it is fascinating read.
So do you think, just getting back to like the privacy aspect here, do you think, I mean, obviously all these apps are opt-in, right? And in any situation, it's really like an opt-in approach. I mean, do you feel like that's appropriate? And on the flip side of that, if you opt in to get the app, what's your reasonable expectation to privacy at that point?
I mean, ideally, it would be completely blind. Like it would just be a non-identifying number that just keeps track of the last 3 weeks of people that you've walked by that have the app as well, by their ID as well. And so it'd be like a decentralized system, and it would just send out a message.
I mean, somebody's got to have the information, right, to be able to correlate. Like, hey, you've been in contact with this person.
No. So you haven't. So you have a system where you just put something into the app. You have an authorized user that can say the person that has this app tested positive, and then it just sends out a peer-to-peer message to the app saying user ID 725 is positive, and then they just check their internal database to see if you've been in contact with user 725 in the last 2 weeks. If you have, then it posts a message saying you've been in contact with somebody who's positive. And if you don't have that user, it just ignores the message. So you can do it in a way that's decentralized, that people still get notified, but there's not a central database that's tracking all this information. And there's ways to still report that data up so that people can get the statistics that they need to properly track stuff. But it's a second layer of de-anonymization. I mean, one of the problems with taking information like this and anonymizing it is that most of the time it's not truly anonymized.
Right.
So for example, GPS apps, like Google tracks your location even if you have the GPS turned off. Like that's just the way it works. And they release that information in some cases that's anonymized. But, my phone, even if you de-anonymize it, my phone spends the majority of its time at my house. So you just look at where it spends the majority of its time. And, I work from home, but if I work at, McDonald's down the street, if the phone the majority of the time goes from this house to that McDonald's, it's pretty easy to see. And, the other phone goes from this house to Dunkin' Donuts. It's pretty easy to see which phone is which, so it's very easy to de-anonymize anonymized data. So if you do a peer-to-peer solution that's just kind of tracking an individual, unique identifier that's not tied to anything, and then storing a local database of the last 2 weeks of contacts, it's very easy to provide that notification service without.
I mean, that's from my understanding, that's exactly what the Google Apple product does. Exactly.
Yeah, they have very smart engineers. I'm sure they.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did a much better job at doing than my few minutes of thinking about it. But there's ways to provide a completely private but accurate reporting system.
So why don't we move on?
Yeah. So our primary topic this week is Drupal 9. So Drupal 9 is here. It feels like it came to little fanfare, but I think that's a positive. Drupal 8 was a very long, very huge lead up, and it took a very long time before sites were ready to start, moving to it. And Drupal 9 feels like, the goal, which was a very simple upgrade and with some deprecated code removal, on its face seems like it was successful.
There was there's been a lot of ramp up for Drupal 9. I mean, I think, John, I think you guys did a webinar like a year ago, right? Wasn't it? Was it that long ago? Or
it seems like it's been forever ago. I'm sure we're all feverishly typing into our browsers to figure out when it was. But I think it was probably about a year ago. That sounds about right. And it's been a thing that everybody's kind of been anticipating for quite a while. And I think to Nick's point with the little fanfare is is a good thing. I think, if we were hearing a lot of, oh, that's funny, it's actually been almost exactly a year. June 19th, that webinar came out on our blog. I think, the little fanfare is a good thing.
Almost to the day a year.
Almost to the day. Yeah. We're off by 4 days here. But, I think the little fanfare is a good thing. I think this would have been, if there was a lot of, if there was an uproar about this, the uproar probably would have been like, I just tried to upgrade from 8.9 to 9 and it like blew up, or things went sideways, or it was so difficult. And the fact that, it's been fairly smooth, and we've seen a couple of tutorials and a couple of screencasts doing Drupal 9 upgrades and having it go fairly well is reassuring. It's encouraging.
So how about if we start with so it came out on June 3rd, and we've been probably every other episode we've been talking about Drupal 9 a little bit here, a little bit near there. So today we thought we'd just sort of recap where 9.0 is, what it isn't, and what will come up in the future for it. Right? So maybe we start with...
Yeah. So I think the biggest change is Symfony 3 is deprecated and being end-of-lifed. So the biggest change between 8.9 and 9 is that the Symfony framework underlying Drupal is now 4.4. Symfony 3's end of life is next year, which is also when Drupal 8 is going to be end of life. So this was kind of a preparatory update so that we can make sure that Drupal is good to go going forward.
So this falls under the category of the Drupal dependencies that were updated, and there were a couple. So Symfony one.
Yeah, there were a few. The next one was Twig. So I didn't actually know this, but Drupal 8 was on Twig 1. Twig 2 has been out for a long time. And Drupal 9 has updated that dependency as well. So Drupal 9 depends on Twig 2. I don't know what the difference is between Twig 1 and Twig 2. I imagine there's a couple of new functions. Under the hood, it's probably more performant. But I've not seen anything about needing to change any of your templates or how you're interacting with it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you see stuff about Drupal 9, people always talk about Symfony changing, but Twig did as well. So it must be pretty minor, whatever it is, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would hope so.
It's just keeping current too, right? So I mean, if Twig 2 is the latest and greatest, using it makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't want to go all through Drupal 9 without upgrading to Twig 2, and then or have to do it in the middle of it, right? It makes sense to kind of launch with the latest and greatest.
So the next dependency update, which I think is interesting, is jQuery and jQuery UI. So one of the hallmarks of a Drupal 7 site, especially a mature Drupal 7 site, was you had jQuery update installed and you were using different versions of jQuery depending on many different factors. And since Drupal 8, you used jQuery, but you've kind of forgotten about it. I've never had to worry about jQuery except for when there was a security update and we had to update. But it looks like jQuery UI has also been end of life. So the Drupal core maintainers have removed most of jQuery UI, except for a couple of components. So it's always good to be, it's nice if you can pare down requirements without impacting functionality, because it means, maintenance and updating is easier.
And I mean, there's also an initiative for the admin initiative to get onto a JavaScript framework and add in, JS elements back into the admin UI. So do you think that's probably part of why that is coming out? So to make room for that other stuff?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty fantastic if we were able to get some sort of framework that's kind of built in. And then the other two kind of big changes, which don't get used on every project, but PHP unit was updated. I think I've been seeing deprecation notices in Composer for that for months now, so it's nice to have that updated. And Doctrine is used to manage annotations, and it was deprecated as well, and so that's been updated.
Interesting. So with the removal with the upgrade and changes Nick just mentioned, there's also the removal of deprecated code, right, Nick?
Yeah, so the next big part of Drupal 9 was removing deprecated code. So there's a bunch of code that didn't quite get removed from Drupal core that was kind of still a holdover from Drupal 7. It was supported but marked as deprecated, meaning it will work in Drupal 8, but next version of Drupal 9 it won't. So Drupal 9 fixed all of the core use cases of deprecated code as well as removing those functions. So I think that's the biggest, other than waiting for contributed modules, the biggest thing you need to do is check any custom modules that you've created. Make sure that you're not using any of those deprecated functions. If you are, update them, and your update should be smooth.
Yeah, it's interesting because isn't one of those deprecated functions like Drupal set message or something like that? So anybody that used like a set message has to change it to a different method for Drupal 9.
Yeah, and I think like the L function is one of them as well. But I mean, to be honest, those are functions that I've been using in a very long time. So, it hopefully it's for most people they've been using the new functions. So
somebody's gonna send me a nasty gram about Drupal set message. Like that's not the biggest thing or the only thing that's being deprecated. Like that's like the smallest thing. Like I get it. It was just an example. Don't send me nasty grams.
I think it's funny because you comment about nasty grams every couple of episodes, but I don't think our listeners are great. I don't think we've actually ever gotten a nasty gram. we've gotten a couple comments
that's true. I mean, I appreciate all feedback. I'm just saying I know that there's somebody out there that's going to be upset about me elevating Drupal set message to that level.
Please send John a nasty gram. He needs one.
Yeah. Only positive thoughts, please. So other than those things, right? The update to using new versions of Twig and Symfony, and then removing and updating some of the testing and Doctrine stuff, and then the deprecation of code. Drupal 8.9 and Drupal 9.0 are exactly the same, right?
Supposedly, I have a feeling there's probably one or two minor changes, but there is one thing. There is one tool that we wanted to mention that could be helpful for people looking to upgrade or planning for upgrades. Because I think one of the really big wins for this is that it's meant to be the end of kind of skipping major releases. All throughout Drupal history, the conventional wisdom and budgeting wisdom was you skipped every major release. So you would do, if you were on 6, you waited till 8. If you were on 7, you waited till 9. If you were on 5, you waited till 7. And this hopefully is the end of that. There's a clean process. You don't have to rebuild everything from scratch. You don't have to do a migration. You can literally just update. To that end, you do need to make sure that all your contributed modules have updated. And Acquia released a tool called Drupal 9 deprecation status. And it has a searchable filter that lets you check on the progress of every module, of every module. So if you can input a list of, you can put in input modules that you're using and see if there's deprecated code, if it's been updated. Now we've noticed that the search is a little finicky. You have to use wildcards typically and no capital letters to find what you're looking for.
And we were joking about that before the meeting, that we had trouble using this tool when it came out. Now that I'm looking at this again, the instructions are right in the paragraph above the search that tells you need to use asterisks.
Yeah, and part of the reason is that it's using like not the module machine name, but it's using like also if it's a dev or things like that. So you need to use wildcards. So instead of searching for paragraphs, you need to search for paragraphs asterisk.
So what I've been doing is projects that I'm working on with Drupal 8. I've created a spreadsheet of all the modules that we're using and depending on, and then linking to this tool and updating the status every once in a while for each of those modules, so we can keep track of sort of where we are. And then if we come to a point in a project that all the things that we're using are kind of ready to go, we could upgrade that project.
And fun fact, now that I have also read the directions, if you put the name of the module space star, it gives you one result, which is just that module.
Yep.
So that's fun. Read the directions on things. It can save you time and aggravation.
So have you guys used this and had results that you weren't happy with?
I haven't looked through every module yet. I just kind of used it on some of the bigger ones that I've been kind of keeping track of.
I've been encouraged, actually, with the percentage of modules that are in decent shape. And they could, like a couple of the modules, like the dev version is compatible, but the current release candidate is not. That doesn't bother me as much, but I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I've been actually using the upgrade status module and running that report to see what what modules on the site do need work or what the issues are. And I've been pretty surprised at some of the how many of the modules are actually Drupal 9 ready, and some of those bigger ones are still being worked on, but yeah, I think it's super positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the advantages of not rewriting the entire code base and going from procedural code to object-oriented. I mean, the upgrade process for modules is a lot more straightforward this time, more than I think any release in Drupal history. So yeah, it's definitely a step forward when it comes to updating.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a little bit of a tangent, but once Drupal.org comes away from Drupal version specific modules, I think that's going to really speed things up quite a bit when you start upgrading to Drupal 10 and Drupal 11, Drupal 12. So kind of excited to see how that pans out.
Okay, so what are the new requirements for Drupal 9? What's changing there?
So it looks like Drupal 9 supports at least PHP 7.3, and 7.4 is also supported but not required. PHP 8 is not yet supported. That's from a PHP side. Drush 10 is required for Drupal 9. Not sure if that's an issue for anyone. I would expect not, right? Most people are using 10 now.
I actually have no idea what version of Drush I'm using, and typically that comes with the Lando build that I'm building.
It's probably 10.
It probably is.
Yeah,
I will have to look the next time I'm in there. But
I'm using 9 on most sites, actually.
Interesting.
10's only been out for a couple months now, right?
Yeah, now I'm curious. I think I am on 10 on most of my sites, but now I'm curious
next time
too.
I boot up Lando, I'm going to have to do a Lando Drush version and figure that out. So, new version of Drupal. Every new version of Drupal comes with new features, right?
Not anymore.
What are the new features in Drupal 9?
9.0.
9.0.
9.0.
Correct.
None.
Nothing, right? Yeah. So, as we said previously, Drupal 9.0 is exactly the same as Drupal 8.9, except with the dependencies updated, deprecated code removed. So all your features that you're looking forward to, you have to wait until Drupal 9.1. And there'll be a link in the show notes to the roadmap for Drupal and those initiatives. Spoiler alert, right now the roadmap says
TBD.
for 9.1, everything is TBD.
Yeah.
So I think we're still...
I was surprised by that. Like, as we were preparing for this show, I was looking at the roadmap and going, there's got to be something that they've committed to here. But everything is TBD.
I think the big push was to get 9
Where we are
out,
right? Yeah,
and get it stable and get everybody working on it, and then to reevaluate where all the projects are, and then plan for what's possible in 9.1.
I know based on the episode we had with Christina a few weeks ago, I know that she mentioned her goal is to have Claro available in 9.1. So
yep,
that's
so
still marked as TBD.
non-experimental. You
Exactly.
mean, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
yep.
So, I think there are a lot of things like that. I've also heard that automatic updates could make an appearance in 9.1 as possibly an experimental module. Configuration management 2.0 is not something I've heard for 9.1, but something I'm very excited about. And then, I think layout and layout builder could see some updates coming in 9.1, as well as media. So, there are a ton of initiatives going on. It'll be very interesting to see once this page gets updated. I'm sure there'll be a lot of social media fanfare to figure out exactly what we can look forward to in 9.1.
So while we didn't get anything new, we did get stuff taken away.
So it's been removed.
Yeah, we got a few things removed in 9.0.
Yeah. So the place blocks module, which I'm admittedly
I don't know what it is either.
going to be like, what is that?
I don't know what it is either.
Drupal 9 still has a block system. And you know what? The place blocks module is going away, but I don't know that I personally will miss it. Apparently Steve won't miss it. Nick, what about you?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
I mean, I don't even see the placebox module.
I think it was experimental.
Oh,
Does that sound right?
Okay.
I honestly couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a placebox module on this Drupal 8.9 site.
I do remember when you would install Drupal 8, like a fresh install, it would say up in the upper right hand corner, if you used like the one of the install profiles, like the minimal install profile, it would say like place blocks. And I always just ignored that because I was like, okay, you're just going to take me to the block screen to place blocks. But anyway, the other thing is the simple test module, right?
Yep.
So Drupal 9 moves to PHP unit. So simple test is out and PHP unit is in.
Fair? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit when Moshe was on in passing a few episodes ago. When he actually had a hand in getting simple test set up originally, and PHP unit won that battle. And it provides a bit more flexibility, more integrations with most common CI tool workflows. And I think is all around better. I think his Drupal Spoons project uses PHP Unit is looking to use PHP Unit as well, but don't quote me on that. But I think it's interesting to see sometimes, Drupal gets a lot of things right, but sometimes, the prediction goes wrong.
And I mean,
I wouldn't say wrong. I mean, Simple Test is great and fantastic, but we didn't pick the ultimate winner at this point.
But I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the way these things work, right? You put them in, and especially with the experimental workflow, right? You put them in, you see how they work, you see if they get traction. If they don't get traction, you take them out, and and if they get traction, you keep them in. I think it's great. I think it's a great way to grow the system. So switching gears from module.
Well, Simple Test wasn't a matter of not having traction. It had tons of traction. I think it was just the wrong solution to the problem.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's accurate there. Obviously we use Simple Test for years, and
I mean, I just want to say too, as a looking at this, we removed a couple modules. I kind of get on my soapbox a couple times a year about this, but I still feel there's so many modules that could just be removed from core. I don't understand why activity tracker is there, history, forum.
We're gonna have to get the big hook out for Nick.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this list sometimes and just wonder, there's some quick edit. I personally don't use that on a lot of sites, but I can see the utility. I understand why people love it, but there's so many modules that, like Tor, I have never once used or known somebody that has. Have any of you ever used Tor?
I think I actually saw a talk about a great way to use the Tor module. I didn't attend the talk. I just remember seeing the title, and it involved the Tor module, and I was like, that's interesting. So
I'm sure you can find it on Drupal TV.
I'm sure you could look it up.
Tor is something new, though, too. I mean, that's something that came in with 8, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably less of a candidate for removal, but I mean, history aggregator, things that at one point in time served a huge purpose, I think. But nowadays,
okay, Nick, we're gonna need you to take a deep breath. Calm down. So, with the removal of those modules, there's also a change in some themes that people may be used to seeing in core, right? So stable and classy are now moving out of core and going into the contrib space. Is that surprising to anybody?
No, but I think it'll make for an interesting upgrade. I mean, if you're using them, as a base theme, whenever you move something like that, it can cause some interesting issues. But I think it makes sense, especially with kind of the push to have Claro eventually become kind of a design system. I think it makes sense.
I think it's definitely going to impact any modules that have depended on Classy for whatever reason that would have been done. I'm not sure, but
I think most people are going to have theme issues with that, right?
Yeah.
So, so let's move on to what you need to be ready for your upgrade, or if you're going to do an upgrade, what you should expect. And I had talked about this a little bit earlier, but I've been using the upgrade status module to check kind of the status of my sites to see if they are in fact ready for the upgrade. So that's one thing that you can do. Nick mentioned the Acquia tool to check your deprecated code, but I think ultimately you're going to want to first check to make sure your contrib modules are in good shape, that you're not going to run into any issues there. And then ultimately you're going to want to update your custom modules and your theme to make sure that, as we said, there's no code deprecation there. I will say that over the past, I think yesterday, I watched Matt Glomman from Centauro did a live stream. It's recorded on YouTube. That talks about using Composer to upgrade to Drupal 9. And he walks through the process. He actually does it on his production site, and ends up taking it down, which is pretty interesting. But he runs into some issues. It's not a clean, run a command and it's done. But very interesting to see the issues he runs into, how he moves over those, and finally gets to Drupal 9 greatness. So some resources there. We'll put a link in the show notes to that, so that way you have the chance to look at that before you jump in.
So what does this mean for Drupal 7 then?
Well, Drupal 7, we've had such a good time.
The clock is ticking.
Well, so you have until November 2021. Drupal 7 will be end of life at that point. So will Drupal 8, but Drupal 7 will have vendor support or extended vendor support until 2024. So if you're on a Drupal 7 site now and you're like, oh no, we're not going to upgrade, we don't have plans to upgrade in the next year and a half, you might want to make sure that whoever you're working with will provide extended support for Drupal 7. You could also do the same thing for Drupal 8, I'm sure. Like, your site's not going to stop working, right? It's still going to keep working, but the suggestion is to probably upgrade. You're going to get a bunch of new fun stuff from 7 to 8, and then again from 8 to 9. So
to be clear, end of life means you are not getting any more security updates for Drupal 7 from Drupal itself as of from the Drupal community as of 2021 November.
Well,
so extended vendor support means you're going to probably be paying somebody else to provide that service to you.
And I would go a little bit further and say, I mean, Drupal 7 gets pretty good security support. You don't really see Drupal 7 modules getting updated anymore. I mean, security updates do, especially for the bigger ones, but like it's not even just about security updates. You're not getting any bug fixes or patches or things.
Anything. Right.
Yeah.
But the code. But John's point was the code you have is still going to run. It doesn't stop running, which is a perfectly valid point. So if there was a bug in it, that bug was already there. It's not going to get fixed. But you will not get the security side of that either, which is the concerning piece to me.
So I'm curious, have you guys worked on any projects that use the extended support for Drupal 6?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. Yeah, me either. Because I mean, there's far more Drupal 7 sites than there were Drupal 6. So I'm curious if more people will take advantage of that.
The other note there, and I think again we note this in the webinar that we gave last year about Drupal 9, but you also have a chance there to actually spend more money on maintenance for your Drupal 7 site. So, if you're looking at it from a company financial standpoint, obviously new site is going to be expensive, but your extended vendor support could be pricier than regular Drupal support, in the fact that as Nick and Steve just said, you don't have the Drupal security team checking for security bugs. You don't have the Drupal community focusing on your version of Drupal as much. And the other aspect there is it could take longer to find bugs, squash bugs, test for bugs, test for security things, and make updates and changes to your legacy code. So, definitely weigh those options when you're thinking about sticking with Drupal 7 or upgrading or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely recommending that people update at this point. And I would even strongly consider looking at Drupal 9 if you're building a site right now on Drupal 8. Like, you want to update sooner rather than later.
I think
well, the date doesn't change, right? So
Yeah, the
Drupal
date's the same
8
for
end
both.
of life is the same day that Drupal 7 end of life.
Yep.
So
And
they're all ending at the same time.
I also don't know that I necessarily agree to jump from 7 to 9 right now. So I think you have to be a little strategic about that, right? So if you're on 7 right now and you're like, oh, look to see if you can jump to 9. Obviously, if your site's running like 3 modules and all the modules are Drupal 9 compatible, then go for it. But for those people that have more complex Drupal 7 sites, it might be perfectly viable and a way to split the cost a little bit, to say, okay, we'll go to 8, 9 right now, and then in a year or so we'll upgrade to Drupal 9 in the hopes that upgrade will be easier, shorter, faster, that sort of thing. So there are a lot of options out there.
I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, if I was starting a project today, I would be targeting Drupal 9. Like
even if you
7.
had to use a module that might have a ton of issues in it that you would have to fix yourself. I mean, that's a lot of.
I mean, if I'm starting a project today, we're probably looking at 3 to 6 months anyway. Most of that stuff should be fixed by then.
I mean, I think it depends. I honestly, it depends on the functionality. So if you're looking at something like,
That's
I
fair.
don't know, Path Auto, right? Path Auto is pretty integral, right, for most sites. If Path Auto has a bunch of issues in it and they need to be squashed, you're on the hook to squash those issues now to make sure your site launches, as opposed to sticking with 8, 9, waiting for the maintainers to fix those, not spending the development time doing that, and then just upgrading later on. So, all I'm saying is, look, think, do what makes sense.
And since we're talking about end of life, why don't we talk about Drupal 9 end of life? What the heck, right? So
Yeah.
the current plan is estimated
3 years.
the 2023.
Yeah, 3 years. So apparently Drupal 9 is going to be around for 3 years, which means that we're going to be, your cycle is going to be faster. But I think that's to everybody's advantage. I mean, we'll presumably have a similar upgrade process from 9 to 10 is what we're going to get from 8 to 9. We're getting new features during major versions when minor releases are given out. So I think the major version update is less of a concern than it has been in the past. It's more, I think the major versions now are about the underlying systems than it is about, PHP dependencies, things like that, than it is about features, because features come every 6 months now. There's no, with Drupal 7, 6, and before, you only got major new features in a major release, which meant you were waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And now we pretty much always get a couple, 2, 3, 4 pretty decent sized features every 6 months.
And I mean, by Drupal 10, we'll have automatic updates. So that'll just be a push button, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
No pressure.
So with the clock running between Drupal 9.0 and 9.1, and you want to get to 9, there's a number of modules that we've already mentioned have deprecated code, needs to be updated. There's an interesting initiative going on. Did you guys take a look at this, the Maintainers Initiative?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think it's something that's been necessary, and I think it's happened at a smaller scale every major version update.
So
I think
let's talk about what it is.
Yeah.
Or what we think it is. So reading this,
Yeah.
it seems like it's an initiative to help module maintainers get through their process of cleaning up and dealing with bugs and things that need to be reviewed and things that need to be tested. and it seems to me it's like maybe a little bit more focused coding sprint. But it looks like the people. It looks like it's an organization. It looks like who is putting this together? It was
Damien McKenna and Greg Boggs.
Right, and it seems like they're trying to organize Drupal developers who are experienced to help maybe less experienced module maintainers get over the hump of cleaning up stuff that's in their queue. They're not there to write new code. It looks like the maintainers are there to kind of help you clear up and get you through to 9, is my interpretation of what this is.
Well, it goes a little bit beyond that too. So they mentioned that I think they're looking to be a somewhat of a mentorship group, but also kind of fix the issue of tons of modules getting, people writing a module, getting to the point where it works for their client and then never touching it again.
Right.
So they say that there's 8 tasks that they plan on taking on. The first one is commit RTBC patches. I mean, we've all seen patches that just live forever. There's an issue in a module that gets posted in 2014. A patch gets created in 2015. And then every couple of releases it gets re-rolled and everybody says it works, but it never gets patched or committed. So they'll commit those and test it and roll a release. They'll review things that need review. So if somebody's written a patch, they'll review it for code style, issues, concerns, things like that. They'll help update documentation. Number 4, they'll triage issues in issue queues to make sure that the status is correct and that everything's clear. They will implement Drupal 9 required fixes, so I imagine they'll be relying on like Drupal Rector stuff. They will help finish security patches to prevent abandoned modules. So many times, one of the things that the security team does is they'll notify people of security issues, but they don't actively fix them.
Right.
And if the maintainer refuses to fix it, it becomes an abandoned project. Right. And a security notice goes out that says this project is no longer supported. And the good thing there is you now know that there's an issue with it, but that means you have an unsecure module. So they'll help finish those up. They'll fix automated testing. So it sounds like, for people that, maybe don't have the experience to write tests, but they can write, a patch to fix something, they can write the patch, and then this team will help write the testing, the simple tests or PHP unit tests. And it looks like they're committing, in some cases, maybe to, finish existing D8 ports. And I don't know if that means moving things from D8 to D9, or there's some modules that were Drupal 7 and never got finished moving to Drupal 8. Like
it implies it's D7 to D8 ports, but I can't imagine it's that.
Or does it just mean like getting a D8 port like to a stable release?
Don't know. But this initiative is like one of the things we've chatted about for years, since the first episode, I think, of this podcast, of these modules that get stuck.
Speaking about getting on the soapbox.
Yeah. I mean, Nick has talked about this for years, as these modules just get stuck in this place, and some really like used modules are stuck in this place, and this looks like an effort to help that out. So you should check out, you can go to the there's a project out here called project/maintainers on the Drupal site. You can go check it out there. They also have a Slack channel now. It's #maintainers. Maybe you know of a module that needs to get fixed, and maybe you can participate and maybe get some mentoring and helping this group out. It's interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on this, and maybe we can talk to them a little bit more detail as things roll along.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from them. What their goals are.
Can reach out
with the long-term
to our
plans.
old friend Damien McKenna.
Yes,
he's the author of said module or initiative
project. Yeah, he and Greg are partnering on it, I think. So yeah, I think it'd be an interesting I think it's an interesting thing. I'm definitely curious. I'm going to see how I can get involved.
Awesome.
You heard that here.
Well, if you have questions or feedback, reach out to us on Twitter at Talking Drupal or email us at show@talkingdrupal.com. You can get show updates by signing up for our newsletter at talkingdrupal.com/newsletter.
And thank you to our patrons for their support of Talking Drupal. It is greatly appreciated. You can learn more about becoming a patron at talkingdrupal.com and push that button that says Become a Patron.
As always, if you've enjoyed listening, we've enjoyed talking.
We're not going to say goodbye first?
Ah,
Or tell people how to reach us.
John was so excited to say that.
it was the next thing on the agenda, man.
That's not in the show notes.
You know he reads whatever's on the prompter. Well,
So, where can our listeners reach you, John?
you can find me on all the social networks at John Picozzi and Drupal.org with the same name. You can find out about Oomph at oomphinc.com.
And how about you, Stephen?
All I can say is if we don't have a guest on, we completely fall apart. So you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Cross with a PH.
You can find me online pretty much everywhere at Nixvan, Nicxvan, and on the Drupal Slack in the channel Talking Drupal.
I'd also like to add that I think we completely fall apart even if we have a guest, but
Maybe. That's true.
that's just us.
Okay, John, this is your moment.
Nope. If
He
you've
closed
enjoyed
it.
listening, we've enjoyed talking.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
It's gonna be some editing on this one.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's fine. If you can edit out all my voice cracks.
I don't know. Some of them are pretty.
So I was laughing at Nick laughing. I look up at the screen and I see Nick just like laughing.
So
And I'm trying to figure out what you guys are laughing at. I'm like, I don't think I said anything
this
funny.
this is probably the second week in a row or third week in a row where every time I've interacted with you, you've mentioned Matt Flamin.
Really? What was last week?
I have no idea, but you've mentioned him like.
Do you have a
since he's been on the
bromance?
show.
Do you have a bromance with Matt?
No. I mentioned him 2 weeks ago, I think, because he was he had gotten a live stream set up. And
Yeah,
then-
but you also you mentioned him then, and then you also mentioned him like a week before for something.
probably for the upgrade status thing. Wasn't he on the show?
Could be.
I didn't
Yeah, he
mention
was on the
him.
show
He was on
too.
the show.
You invited him for the show too. So since he's been
I
on the show,
invited him for the show.
Didn't you?
I invited him. I mean, I made a.
I'm pretty sure you did.
I actually
Yeah,
invited. I invited Ryan, and he tagged along. So
But I think I made a comment to Stephen the other day that you've been mentioning Matt quite a bit, and so you brought him up again today.
well, all right. I'm glad that was amusing to you. I mean, if you watch the live stream, it's very entertaining, and he runs into some issues.
I don't have a problem with you mentioning him, and it makes sense in context. I was just chuckling because.
So I didn't watch the live stream. I clicked on it this morning, but that sucker was like an hour. I was like, I can't watch something for an hour right now. Did he run into particular problems that?
Yeah. So he started to do his upgrade and he ran into dependency problems and he walks through them in
Dependency problems with contrib modules or with custom code?
dependency problems with Drupal recommended, Drush, and some Symfony stuff, I think. There were a couple of different things. They weren't contrib modules specifically.
Okay.
There were some contrib modules that were issues, but what was interesting was his the way that he debugged the problems. Like he kind of showed you like where he typically looks in the kind of like the output that gave you some insight as to what you needed to do, and the way that he did it was kind of interesting. He basically put a slash in and then just asked Composer to upgrade that dependency with dependencies.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked. It just worked itself out. So it was pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I turned it on while I was working, and I just kind of like, and he actually asked for a few. He's like, "Oh, well, when you watch it, any feedback would be appreciated." And there's some instances there where like there's dead air because he's waiting for like, for their Composer to do its thing, or
right.
And I'm like, you gotta fill that dead air, whether it's talking or answering questions or what. But it's interesting because the live stream is a little bit different than the podcast. Like obviously we record and then we do some editing and we put out a show, but he's got the chat and like people pinging him live on the air, which was interesting to me. I was kind of like, wow, it's like 3-dimensional chess, right? You got the video, you got the audio, and now you got the chat room, which is whole new thing. So we should probably write in about the Slack channel now that Nick has created it.
I created one in our Talking Drupal Slack too, because I thought I was in the Drupal Slack and I was going to invite you guys. I'm like, I don't think we need to have a Talking Drupal channel in the Talking Drupal Slack.
Nice.
If we want to have a meta discussion about Talking Drupal.
It's Inception. So yeah, we should probably add a note about that in the closing or somewhere. Maybe we can add it to the have questions or feedback blurb.
Yeah. Well, you can add it to I'll add it to the template.
Yeah.
All right.
So when you guys upgrading your sites to Drupal 9?
Probably in a week or two. No, I don't know. My honest goal is before 9.1. I don't have a specific date, and then I'm probably going to try to update. I've got a couple of
the problem is the problem is going to be that, and the way they put this gap in is great because there's no new features coming out between now and 9.1.
Yeah.
So it gives these modules a chance to catch themselves up. Because once 9.1 comes out, people are going to want to start getting the new features in Drupal, and the only way to get them is to upgrade to 9. So you're going to be in a problem come October when new features start to come out and you can't get them.
I have kind of 3 categories of websites too. I mean, I have like a couple of really simple Drupal 8 sites that have like almost no modules, and so I'll probably update those first. And then I've got a couple that have 1 or 2 custom modules, right? And so I need to go through, and I wrote them a couple years ago, so I got to double check that there's no deprecated code and that kind of thing. And then I've got a commerce site. I'm honestly concerned about that because commerce sites use tons of contributed commerce modules, and stuff.
I will say commerce itself is Drupal 9 ready.
Is it?
Yeah, but commerce with commerce you have something that depends on commerce that depends on that depends on that. Like you have dependencies 3 and 4 levels deep sometimes. Like for example, we have commerce module, then commerce shipping module. I have shipping, and then a module that depends on shipping to modify it, and then a module that depends on that.
What version of commerce are you going to from?
2. I'm on 2.
You're on 2? Because some major changes happened in the shipping module. Like we had a hell of a time going from 8.13 to 8.16.
Oh, you see Nick's face.
And then I've got a couple yeah, and I've got a couple Drupal 8 sites that have a significant number of customized modules.
You said you're on 2. You're on 2x. Do you know what version commerce you're on? Because if it's anything lower than like 8.13, you're probably in for a world of hurt.
They don't provide easy upgrade between minor releases.
They do.
You couldn't even update them at one point. You had to globally.
So they don't use
everything.
semantic versioning either, then, right? Because when you go like from 8.13 to 8.16,
there's some core.
It's supposed to.
There's some core. there's some core bug where their composer dependencies don't work.
So, there's you basically have to update everything individually. But yeah, Steve, you're right. There was some major changes between, like, I think it was, I want to say it was, but there were major changes in 14, 15, and 16 that were all kind of like linked together. So you can't go from like anything below 13 directly to 16 if you wanted to. You have to systematically like upgrade each one. And we ran into problems.
Right.
But that could just be because of the complexity of the site. So, I mean, I'm sure if you stayed up to date, it would be pretty seamless and you wouldn't have much of a problem. But if you're on anything below 8.13 right now, like plan out like a month of your life to upgrade that.
Holy crap! Month of your life.
Well, I mean, you're also almost 5 versions behind. So,
Speaking of updates like that, I recently Home Assistant, the project I use for home automation, they release versions every 3 weeks, I think, or so. And since coronavirus started, I haven't really updated too much because I've been, we've been dealing with a lot of stuff and work's been crazy. So I went to update this weekend. Oh my God. They have it's a fast moving project, but there are so many breaking changes. I almost couldn't handle it. So what happens is they're trying to get to a 1.0 release. And one of the big pushes is to move everything. Everything used to be configured in YAML, and they're moving to configuring it by UI. And
Really?
so yeah,
And not both,
which makes sense.
The
because,
UI doesn't update the YAML.
No.
That's weird.
But in most cases, what happens is version 0.1 comes out and they say, okay, we're deprecating the YAML code for this integration, and it imports it to the UI. So it does the reverse. And then at some point it just removes it. And so in those cases, you literally just have to delete that YAML code and it's already working. But some of them they just remove, and then you have to go in and add it. And they have a dependency manager, a community supported dependency manager that lets you install custom stuff. And I was so far behind on versions. I was 6 months behind on that. And when I went in hey, this isn't working, they were all like, what the hell? How are you on such an old version? It's it's been 6 months. What do you mean? You're acting like I'm on something that's 10 years old. You're on version 1.1 and I'm on 0.18. Yeah, we don't even know how many releases. So apparently, these people that work on this project release stuff 5 times a week and expect you to update everything. Now, to be fair, they make it pretty easy to. A lot of that stuff updates pretty easily, but I try to update them every couple of months because there's breaking changes.
It's funny you say that because I have my office light in my office, and some of the lights in my house are on the home. What is the Apple one called?
HomeKit.
That's it.
HomeKit.
No,
I
yeah.
think they're on HomeKit.
Home is cool.
And they every night they all go out at 11:30. My office light goes off by itself at 9 in the morning. If it was on, all of that stopped working yesterday. Last night at midnight, all the lights in the house were still on. I haven't gotten the guts yet to start to look and see why. Because
that's why I do everything. I do everything locally because I don't want to have to worry about it.
It's interesting. I had an issue with my automation a couple of weeks ago, and I think it ended up being my router, which was weird.
Well, the reason why I had to update actually is this because I mentioned that the AC has an auto. I have it connected last week on the show, and there's a button on the remote that allows you to turn off the LEDs on the AC, and they're super bright. So I automated that. But there's some bug in the Broadlink system so that it sends that packet 12 times instead of just once. And so I looked at it and there was an update. And I wouldn't mind it sending it multiple times because who cares? But the problem is it sends it so many times that the LED heatsink causes the AC to error out because it's turning on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And I don't want to break, the AC, obviously. So I updated it, and like everything broke. Like not everything, but the things that I use the most, like the camera system, the home audio system, the Roku integration, the graphing.
Is it those times where you wish you had better documentation for yourself, or did you have documentation?
No, it was more that I wish I had. So normally I do this kind of stuff on the weekend, and I knew this was going to be a bigger update. So if I had done it not on my laptop and done it from my computer, I probably could have done quicker. But I've been too busy at work to even take half an hour off to do something personal like that. So I kind of went into it knowing it was going to be a mess. But the other thing, the biggest tenet of my home automation thing is that everything has to have a local control. So even if the automation stopped, like our switches work,
right?
So you can turn it on and off.
Not like you're stuck, right?
Yeah. So it's like, whereas a lot of like smart lights and things, if the app doesn't work, you can't control it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I refuse to install anything like that because, if something happens, or, I say I get sick or something and something happens to it, I don't want Joanna to not be able to turn the lights on and off, or sound on and off. So yeah, I mean, even if it goes down, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's just, it took me maybe an hour and a half to get everything reconfigured. And to be fair, once all I had to do was make sure I named them the same, and all the automations picked back up automatically. Like I didn't have to.
So
didn't have to do it.
Fun random bit on the whole COVID thing. I just got an email from my doctor's office, and it was like preparing for your next in-person appointment. So it goes through all of these things, and it says, remain in your car until we notify you to come into the office for your appointment. And then it says, upon entering the building in like a heading. And then underneath that, it says, put on your mask to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other diseases. Wouldn't you want to put your mask on like in your car or as you left your car?
Yeah.
Like, does anybody look at this shit and think through the steps? Yeah.
I mean, Joanna's had to have a couple of eye appointments because the eye that she had surgery on has been hurting. So we had that appointment the other day where we had that show when I was in the parking lot. And it's the same thing. They have her, she has to put the mask on, take temperature, all that kind of stuff.
Hey, the channel for Talking Drupal that's on Drupal Slack, is there like a description of what this is?
I haven't had any. I literally just created it.
I put it in the topic.
Oh, yeah, a group of people with one thing in common. We love Drupal.
Well, that's the topic, but you can also add a description if you go under the details and you click more and then go to additional options.
And I see I have a thing that says add description. But
set channel
can
description.
anyone add that, or is that the description I see?
No, anybody can add that.
Okay. It's weird.
So somebody could come in here and go, it's a bunch of
shit,
jackasses talking about Drupal.
Yeah. Which would be accurate.
It's a bunch of...
Or at least not inaccurate.
Right. It's not inaccurate. That's true.
Okay, I got to try to take care of this. I have a semi-production issue.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Talk to you guys later.
See you guys. Bye.
Right.
Don't forget to get your 50 stars, Stephen.
Yes. Thank you.
Right.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.